This evening there are some district level administrators here and some Board of Education members, so as the meeting concludes, you can certainly catch any of us for additional questions that you have that you may not be comfortable asking in a larger group. So I'll start with the Board of Education. If you're a Board of Education member, could you just please stand up and wave? Okay, and district cabinet members are also here, if you'd stand up and wave. And as they present a part of this evening, some of them are co-presenting in their areas of specialty where they've worked with our stakeholders on this information. So they will be coming up and they'll introduce themselves as that happens. We do have one more board member joining us, so if you'd wave to Bob Erickson as well. He's also available for any questions or comments toward the end of the presentation. So we'll start at the beginning. Our referendum, we are calling Restoring Our Strength and Building Our Future. And the reason is it's really a two-part levy referendum. And that really has to do with the financial restrictions that we have to adhere to for state requirements. So we would love to be asking our community one question, quite frankly, that will bring us into a better position, but we can't do that. So part of this evening is explaining the operational question that we'll ask, which is really the people question, and the capital question, which is more the resources and equipment question. With that, we always want to start with our vision. Our vision of world-class personalized learning is what we are striving for. We want to be able to meet the needs of every student that comes to Lakeville Area Public Schools, and we want to offer them the most high-quality educational experience in a fiscally responsible manner. Go back down memory lane a little bit. In 2003, a levy referendum was passed, and that is the time when Lakeville South was built. And then throughout the next decade, from 03 to 13, the district did ask community members to consider capital levies and operational levies a number of times, and those were defeated for one reason or another. Seems like people have a lot of different opinions of why that is, so we don't need to really go into that. But I did want to share with you that we did have a success in 2013 when we asked our taxpayers to fund an operational levy. So just to give a little context there, over that decade, we did make about $26 million in budget adjustments to balance our budget year to year without additional revenue. And in 2013, we were facing $4 million more in adjustments. So what we asked for in the 2013 levy was $5.6 million. $4 million so that we didn't have to reduce any more programs or raise any more fees, and we could keep all of the opportunities that student had intact. But we also wanted to address our stakeholders' highest priorities. And at that time, it was class size. And guess what? It still is. At that time, class sizes at the elementary level were of the highest concern, and we have a graph that will show you a little bit more information on that. And then from 2 community surveys, we kept hearing from our stakeholders the district needs to be offering STEM programming. Our students need to be exposed at a higher level to hands-on science, technology, engineering, and math to really prepare them and have a solid foundation for the global economy. So we really wanted to take our stakeholders' top priorities, if that levy passed, and make sure that we honored them. And that's exactly what we did, and you can see the detail on the slide. So we kept our promise. We were able to lower class sizes at the elementary level. We were able to bring in STEAM specialists, so every student, grade 1 through 5, once a week has a hands-on project and experience that integrates science, technology, engineering, math, as well as the arts as far as design into a project. And I can tell you, we receive so much positive feedback from parents on our STEAM initiative at the elementary level. Our students love it, it's engaging, and our parents have given us incredible feedback. As promised, we didn't make any reductions at that time. We were able to balance the budget and move forward. That brings us to our needs today and why we're here having this meeting this evening. So the operational question, as I said, there are two separate questions, and you can see that on your half sheet, pretty much mirrors this slide. But the operational question takes what, again, from numerous surveys and information, our stakeholders tell us are their highest priority. We cannot address everything when you look back and realize that we've adjusted our budget by $26 million. And then we came back with 5.6. We can't address everything. So again, the highest priority items are being considered. And this time, that is still around class size, focused primarily initially at the high school level, but over the 10-year period, being able to use those FTEs where they're most needed in the organization to keep student-to-teacher ratio at a nice level so great relationships and great teaching and learning can happen. We also heard that art in its full form with an art specialist should be integrated back into our elementary programming. So having art once a week at the elementary level would also come back to the level it was before. So students wouldn't just get a little bit of art design through STEAM, they would have the full art curriculum aligned to the state standards. And then finally, 5th grade band was the third one, and we'll go a little bit more into that when we get to that particular slide and tell you a little bit more about what that looks like. The capital levy then is that separate question. As I said, the operational is about the people, and the capital is about the resources that we need to be able to offer the highest quality programming in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and math, PK-12, as well as digital learning. Many curriculum resources, as you'll hear tonight, now come in a digital format. And the world is a very global world. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about our Future Ready plan and how it differs from other districts and how we've made it our own based on our stakeholder feedback. And then finally, the other priority, as you'll see by the graphs that we share later, was in the area of safety and security and making sure we have a dedicated funding stream in that area as well. So with that, here's a little bit more detail on class size, just to give you a visual. So in 2013-14, that red bar across the grade levels, kindergarten through 5th, shows you where we were before the last levy passed. And then the blue one was last year, 14-15. So it shows you over our system how we were able to bring down class sizes. Now, since we had finite resources, we focused those, as we said during the levy campaign, focused those on 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Because the Board of Education had continually always tried to stay committed to lower class sizes, manageable class sizes at K-1-2. So you might be that parent in the audience that says, well, my student at this particular grade level is at the max for board guidelines. And that may very well be true because it's not a perfect system. But you're looking at it from a district-wide perspective and how we were able to take those 20 new teachers and distribute them across our system to address average class size. And this is this year, so this shows that those dollars are continuing to help us stabilize and keep enrollment at a steady level at the elementary level. So since now we're asking about high school class size, let's look at that. The red line is the state metro region average. And when they ask for this data, we have to submit it all. We submit our electives, our core classes, our special ed classes, which might be a smaller group of students that have specialized needs per their IEP. So you might look up at our blue graph and say, yes, we're quite higher than the state metro average, but those numbers, 33, that doesn't sound so bad in a high school class. Well, those of you, anyone want to raise your hand if you're a high school parent? You know what that really looks like in a classroom. So we are most concerned with our core classes, meaning those 4 core areas, that English and science and math and social studies, that kids really have to have a high level of success. So in some of those classes, we're quite often hearing that they are in the 40s. And so we are really looking at that from a systems standpoint to make some adjustments. We've heard a lot of stories about science labs where kids are having to not only double up to use lab space and equipment, but often triple or quadruple up. Our classrooms simply were not designed for 45 students to be able to do hands-on experiences in the labs. And many of our other classrooms just cannot currently accommodate that large of a class. Also, to put this last graph in perspective before we go on, how many years have we participated, Jason, in the Metro study? So we have done this for 4 years. We send in all our data, and of about 42 districts in the region, usually they hear from about 38. So it's a very large sample that we're comparing ourselves to. And we've always been in the 90% plus as far as the highest class sizes at the high school level. But this year in the core areas, this past year, we were at 100%. We have the highest class sizes at the high school level in the metro region. Sorry, the green one is simply last year and the blue one two years ago. So that's been consistent. Some of the reasons why class size is so critical isn't just about the facility problems that I just described. It's really about the key to our profession and the success of our organization. And that is the personal attention that our teachers can give our students. The relationships that need to happen. Because as a learner, I have to want to learn from my teacher. I have to get to know my teacher and my classroom and my classmates so I feel safe and am able to take some risks and really learn. So those are some of the key areas. And of course, productivity is critical as well from a teacher's perspective and being able to manage large numbers of students and do so at a highly effective way. Here's a picture of what that would mean for us. So we would be able to add 7 additional teachers at the high school level. And 7 might not sound like a lot, because in 2013 we added 20 across the elementaries, right? But at the high school, it has a much bigger impact. And here's why. A teacher at the elementary level pretty much has their class for the day, and they're teaching all subject areas except for the electives. That's not the case at the high school. Students have electives they can choose from. And they are scheduled every hour throughout the day into different courses. And so because of that, you're looking at teachers and how many sections they can offer. And then how can that impact bringing that class size average down? So when you have that many more teachers that can offer that many more sections in the core areas, you're bringing class sizes down for everybody. So it would have a tremendous impact. Now this is based on consistently, with current numbers, having less than 35. So when elementary parents, you say, okay, what are your top guidelines? What are the board's top guidelines for class size at the elementary? And we have a different number for each grade level that we try not to surpass. That would be the cap at the high school that this is striving for, to try to never have a class that's over 35. Many would be less. The art that I talked about, that little chart shows kind of a schedule of what it would look like for every student by grade level. So every student would have 1 full section of art per week. And that attributes, to be able to do that in 8 elementary schools, we need the equivalent of 5 full-time teachers. I promised to talk a little bit about bringing back 5th grade band and what that would look like, because I have found that some people don't really remember what some of these looked like in our organization. I had a parent tell me the other day that her child had never had elementary art throughout her elementary experience so far. So it's been a while. You know, here it is 2015, and a lot of those reductions were made in 2010. So it's been a while. So we're looking at restoring our strength. So we're not bringing art back to look different than it was before. It would look like it did in 2010 as far as the opportunity. And so would band. And how band was offered was a before or after school opportunity for 5th grade students to get started on learning their instrument and having a band experience. Next, we move into the capital levy, the resources that we need to be able to offer a high-quality, world-class education. And we're calling that building our future. So you go back to our vision of world-class personalized learning, and if you have time to go on our website and look at the adoption of our most recent strategic plan, you will see the alignment to what we're asking for to position ourselves to continue to be a high-quality school district offering an exceptional education for our students over the next 10 years. Just like with the operational question, where we chose our stakeholders' top priorities, the class size, art, and music, we did the same thing here. We even expanded who we were asking. So primarily on the operational question, we looked to parents, number 1, and teachers to really establish those priorities. We even went beyond that to the community. And on this one, we even did some additional surveying to talk to our business community as well. Because the capital question really has focused on the top priorities of what we found were common in all of these groups. In all of those groups, the same top 3, although not in the same 1, 2, 3 order, but the same top 3 came through in all of those stakeholder groups. So, for example, the little icon with the beaker, that's our symbol for STEM. Our shield is our symbol for safety and security. And the computer screen is our symbol for digital learning and global resources. So you take a look at those and you can see, based on the survey samples, and we had great numbers of people offer feedback on these surveys, you can see the 1, 2, 3 order by stakeholder group for the support of the items in this particular question. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Executive Director of Business Services, Michael Bauman, and he's going to talk about safety and security because he has led the work in this area with our stakeholders.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Snyder. So, with respect to safety and security, we're looking at visitor management systems. We're looking at our internal security, which would include your security cameras and your electronic strike systems that you have throughout the facilities that we service here in the district. And then finally, support and maintenance, because all of that would require sustainment over time so that we could make sure that our systems are as effective as they can possibly be. So we're looking at, in the capital levy, which we're focused on the technology, whether it's software for our visitor management system or electronic strike capabilities within our facilities, or if it's sustaining those technologies with our security cameras to make sure that we're capable of integrating with first responders and be far more effective than our current capability is. We are looking at about $100,000 per year over 10 years to do that support. And so I think next we're going to talk about STEM. The Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Barb Knudsen.
Thank you. Good evening to all of you. When we look at the STEM programming, we currently have in place at our elementary level, engineering is elementary, which is a hands-on, problem-solving, experiential program for our students. They go through units like robotics, they build handheld pollinators, they do a whole variety of scientific experiments. When you look at the resources, we want to continue that and add resources to the elementary, move into the middle level and add Project Lead the Way, the same type of programming where it's investigative, hands-on, inquiry-based. And then the senior high, we have the STEM Academy right now, and they're trying to get 5 different pathways going for our students. The 5 pathways include industrial technology, computer programming, engineering, environmental engineering, and bioengineering and medical pathways. Sorry about that. So we want to be able to expand that programming. The key here is we want to make sure that we have comprehensive programming and access for all students to it. So what we'd be looking at is K-8, all students would be required to take it, 9-12 students may self-select. And the key is that this is really teaching kids advanced problem solving.
All right, good evening. I'm Jason Molesky, the Executive Director of Technology and Data Services. I'm going to spend a little bit more time here talking about the technology portion of our capital levy because as you've seen in the information that's been handed out and as you've seen in the information regarding the levy, this is the most sizable portion of the capital levy itself. To start with though, I'd like to make it very clear on where we intend to go with technology in our district. And I think every one of us in the room would have no problem agreeing with the fact that there is no piece of technology out there that could ever replace our teachers, and that is certainly not the direction we intend to go as a district. We know many districts out there are investing heavily in technological resources, going the one-to-one direction, giving devices to every student and so on. And after meeting with a lot of our stakeholders, our parents, our staff members, our community members throughout the past year, we've taken the time to really develop a technology vision that doesn't seek to provide a device for every single child. We don't want our children looking at screens all day, every day. What we really want to seek to do is build a balanced environment for learning, one that welcomes and supports and integrates the use of digital tools within the classrooms, but also continues to build upon the traditional methods that our teachers use. Any of you with children in the classroom know that our teachers do a phenomenal job, both with and without digital tools in the classroom. So the purpose of this levy really is to seek to provide that balanced environment, and more importantly, to provide a consistent funding stream for that environment so that we can provide the tools that they feel are most appropriate to use within their classroom when they feel it's most appropriate. I wander a lot, I apologize. So it's critical to note that balanced piece because as I noted, again, we know a lot of our comparable districts and a lot of our neighbors really are investing very heavily in technology. If you look at a number of districts around us, you may have seen the words one-to-one or the words BYOD, bring your own device, and so on. We here within our own district have experimented somewhat with both approaches. We've seen benefits to having digital tools in the hands of our teachers in one-to-one environments, but we also know that comes with a very hefty price tag. We've invested in the infrastructure to allow for any device to be used in the classroom, but we also know we don't want to put the burden for providing all technology in our community as well. So when we looked at all of the districts that were out there, we really wanted to make sure we were doing what was most appropriate in our community. And in looking at the financial investments, we found that in a lot of those districts that are providing one-to-one, they have a very sizable capital technology levy for their community, ranging anywhere from $2.5 million per year in Burnsville that was just passed, all the way up to $6.5 million per year in the Hopkins district, just to provide their technological resources. We felt that we couldn't go there. Our district is not ready to be a one-to-one. We don't feel that's necessarily the best solution for our students and for our staff. So we're seeking $1.5 million per year in technology to provide that more balanced approach. Now in terms of the specifics, that consistent funding stream would actually provide for 3 specific items. First and foremost, that consistent funding stream would allow us to update, refresh, and maintain our core technological infrastructure. What I mean by that is our computer labs, our printing resources, our classroom technology, and so on. Currently, our computer labs that we have in our schools were last replaced in 2008. So when this funding would come around, the computers that our students are using on a day-to-day basis would be close to a decade old. Our printers throughout the district were last replaced when our current graduating class entered kindergarten. So we have a very immediate need to replace our core technology across the district. So we would be seeking to refresh that throughout. And that's something that would actually have to happen regardless of a capital levy, because many of those machines simply are obsolete at this point and no longer supported by the manufacturers. So with a capital levy, we would have that consistent funding stream, allowing us not only to update those, but to also put them on a manageable refresh cycle for the next 10 years to ensure that we have the funding available to refresh them as needed without needing to reallocate resources from other parts of our budget. When we look at providing student access, as I've indicated, our goal again is not to provide a device for every child. We don't feel that's the solution, but at the same time, we recognize that there is power in having devices available for teaching and learning. So what this funding source would do would allow us to provide a shared set of devices for each of our grade levels. So for example, if you have a student in 3rd grade, if there are 4 teachers in that grade level, they would share 30 devices amongst them. So they would get to choose when they feel it's most appropriate to use those tools in their classroom to enhance their learning. It might be in a small group setting, shared across the team. Maybe one day a teacher would decide they want to do a whole group activity with some technology, and they'd have the ability to do that while the rest of the teachers did something a little bit more traditional with their class. So again, we're not seeking to provide a device for every child, but looking more along the lines of about a 3-to-1 ratio or so. And then as we look at support and maintenance, obviously with technology, it breaks, it needs to be maintained, it needs to be updated over time. So this consistent funding stream would allow us to tap into those resources outside of the general fund and allow us to set up articulated refresh cycles, keeping that technology up to date and working for all of our students and staff as we move throughout these 10 years. So that $1.5 million, just to put it in perspective, when we look at our entire budget, would represent about 1% of the entire operating budget of our district. So for our 11,000 students, for roughly 1,800 staff, we'd be devoting approximately 1% of our dollars to keeping those technological resources up and running. Now, we don't have a great deal of information or detail up here on exactly what would be purchased with those dollars. That is available on our website along with all of our other fast facts. So if you go to ISD194.org, you could simply see exactly what devices would be purchased in the first refresh cycle. And then the second time around, obviously, we would have to actually reconsider that depending on the technology available 5-6 years down the road. But for further information and for additional detail, we can certainly get that to you either on the website or by contacting any one of us as well. So that'll turn it over to Dr. Snyder.
We wanted to share just a little bit of information because what we tell you in easy-to-read language looks very different when you go to vote, because there are requirements about how these questions have to be phrased, and we have to follow those. But we did try to, as you may have read in the paper, the board really tried to make these as detailed and clear as possible to our voting community of how we're planning on using the dollars. So, where's the red little guy on this one? On the front? Oh yeah. Okay, so right here, if you take a look, this is question number 1, which is the capital project levy, authorization to fund technology. So even though that just says technology, it still also means the STEM resources, the safety and security, but it has to fall under digital software, hardware, and support. And then here, it talks about the actual uses, so you can read how those how that revenue stream would be utilized. We have to use the figure that's the 10-year estimation. So again, that's kind of tough too, because we're not asking for $20 million a year. That's over the length of the time period. The second question is the operational question. So question 2, approval for the operational question is really asking about $100 per pupil increase on the formula. So that's how we would gain those dollars to use, as we state right here, to lower teacher to student ratio, which right now in our system means class size, because that's how we're configured. We didn't write it like that because if you haven't noticed, education's changing, and many of you have seen that your student sees much more than one teacher and one classroom in a day. There's a lot more movement in school. There's a lot more adults and teachers involved. There's a lot more small group, flex learning, online learning, all is being incorporated. So to be very clear though that we are continuing to use these dollars for teachers to facilitate learning in our schools. And then there's the art and the band. Michael's going to come back up and kind of give you a little perspective financially. We get a lot of questions about how do we compare to other districts financially in these areas, and so he's going to share that information with you.
Thank you, Dr. Snyder. So this chart here gives you what we look like as a district in fiscal year 14. So what you see on the left are the top 20 schools by enrollment, or school districts by enrollment in the state of Minnesota. And it's not visible there probably from your distance, but Lakeville would be number 9 on that list in terms of enrollment in fiscal year 14. But where we sit on our funding per student or per pupil is at the very bottom of those 20. That's what that chart tells you. Right there. So why does that matter? It matters so that you have a common operating picture or common knowledge about where we were in 14. And so the next chart here shows you Lakeville. I'm going to go ahead and build this, but I'll backwards explain it so you can see it better. That's where Lakeville is. When we passed the operating levy, we had $1,097 per student able to increase our situation. On the left, again, are those top 20 by enrollment. You can see Lakeville sits at a little bit better position for operating levy. What you see in blue are the districts that have also capital levies. And so you can see we're all green because we don't, can I unbuild that? Will that work? Okay. So you can see we're all green means we didn't have any capital levy. So some of the other school districts do have that capital levy, so it's combined effects that they were able to achieve. And the yellows are highlighting the school districts that are going out for question in this upcoming cycle. So I don't know the results of that, so I can't show you the juxtaposition of the movement of that. I can just kind of show you a static picture of that. But if we were to successfully pass both of the referenda, we would move slightly higher in comparison to the top 20 by enrollment in the state of Minnesota. And you can see on the far left side would show the capital and then the combined operating based on the one that we just passed as well. So what does that mean in terms of tax impact? You can see for question 1 on the capital, it would be $77 in the next tax cycle, and $49 for the operating question or the operational levy referendum. Combined would be $126. And I also have a chart here. Some of you maybe have commercial property or apartments, non-residential homestead property, so you can see some numbers there, but I again highlighted the residential homestead just to show you where that lands for Lakeville Area Public Schools and our residents. So with that, I'll pass it back to Dr. Snyder. I stepped out.
Thank you. They don't listen to me very well, do they? So just to be clear, that 126 tax impact is annual, so that for an average priced home in Lakeville, which is what that's based on, is about $10 a month for a property owner of an average priced home. And we obviously have the chart there because not everyone owns an average priced home, right? And also on our website, you can actually put in your property value and have all of this calculated for you, so you would know exactly what your increase would be. And just to be very clear, it doesn't continue to go up every year at that rate. The operational question goes up slightly with inflation. And if you look at the trend, that's about 1% a year. So just to be very clear on that. Little voting information I'll put up on the screen there, but I think most of you are very clear. We are operating all of the precincts because when we haven't in the past, that's been problematic for people that have complained that they were in lines too long, or they didn't get to vote and they had to go pick up their kids, and we don't want any barriers. If you want to vote, however you want to vote, we want you to be able to have that opportunity. Also, don't forget about absentee voting because the laws have changed around that. You may have students that are away at college that still have their permanent residence in your home, and they certainly can vote by absentee ballot by simply filling out an application that's online. There's a link on our website. You can get the application through the city, and we'll have them available in our school offices as well. Once you fill out that application, the ballots are mailed to you. You fill them out and mail them in or drop them off. So it's really quite simple to vote if you are a legal resident at this point. Well, it is about 8 minutes after 7, and we wanted to be sure we were brief enough to be able to address your questions, your comments. So that is what we're going to do now, and if you wouldn't mind coming on up and using this mic so everyone hears your question. And if you're too shy to do that, as I said afterwards, board members and district administration are available to do just that. Also, Renee Olette and Steve Porter are here, and they are willing to walk around and give you an index card. So if you don't want to come up here and read it, you don't have to. Write it on the index card. They will act as runners, bring it on up to us, and we'll read it for you. So we're just going to make this super easy and comfortable for everybody that's here. All right, we have our first question.
Thank you very much. I think all the funding is, it makes sense. It's important to stay consistent with the trends and for the kids in education. It was great to see that safety ranked number 2, at least in 3 of the 4 stakeholders, staff, parents, and then the community. Businesses, I guess, it's a different thing. But all these technology things are good to have, Jason, and but the more I read the news, the more I'm concerned about kids' safety in the school. I think the funding for the safety of $100,000 per year is very low. I'm not sure how that number was assigned. With 15, 16 schools out there, that's maybe between $5,000 to $6,000 a school. I don't know what you can buy for $5,000 or $6,000 that's going to keep our kids safe in this community. And just reviewing the information, I did some research. I saw that the Columbine, the shooter was in and out in less than 60 seconds. And then the Sandy Hook, they had a controlled access system, and the shooter just shot through the controlled access system. So I've read something in the newspaper about the systems that are available, a multi-layered system, that the idea is to distract and deter, and something that goes in that phase. But basically buy yourself time, 5 minutes, 4 minutes before safety can get there. So 100,000 is not enough.
I'm so glad you brought this up. And I'm going to have Michael come up and talk about our comprehensive security and safety plan in our district. But just to be clear, how we can use capital dollars is very defined by the state. So we unfortunately can't use these dollars, say, for hiring staff for this area, or anything that's non-technology for safety and security can't fall under this umbrella. So we have to build those things into our general budget, and that is exactly what we do. So I'm going to have Michael talk a little bit about some of the areas of security.
Thank you for your observation, sir, and your question. What I would tell you is we're not starting from zero. We actually have quite a bit of capability that exists currently in the district, and we're trying to build upon that. What you identify is emerging technology and future systems that, if I'm understanding your statements about the layered, the deter, detect, that concept, but we would be able to start to move in that direction. The problem with buying future technology, you can buy it too early, so you got to be careful of that. That said, we've looked at the challenge with safety and security in a multi-layered fashion already, and we've done a lot of things with our policies, our processes and procedures, as well as with training. There is no substitute for a vigilant staff, and without going into all the pieces of each and every incident that occurred, I can tell you what's occurred in Columbine and in Sandy Hook were heinous acts of terrorism that would have required probably the garrisoning of the school facility. And we have to be careful about the balance that we're trying to establish. We want a safe and secure environment with our core mission of education being retained. Not an easy thing to do, but we believe this track we're on would be extremely helpful. Would it solve every contingency? Not likely. So we'll just keep working on that is the best answer I can give you now, other than our assessment does tell us, building on what we have, this is going to be extremely helpful and will lead us forward.
I'm going to be on video now too.
Get between the mics.
Oh, I did. I wanted to make sure I was squared up.
Okay.
I still have more homework to do, but this seems a very pragmatic approach. That's really mine. But there's something here I think was a little unclear. And this would be a red flag for me. It was unclear. I heard that only the capital levy was not going to be adjusted for inflation, and only the operating funds. And the second question is, when you say adjusted for inflation, what inflation are you adjusting for? Is this property values, or is this, because that's very unclear, and I would like to know, because when you put the 20 million up there, the first thing that pops into my head is the forecasted property value for Lakeville is approximately 8 to 10% per year. The forecasted income growth for Lakeville is approximately 4 to 5% per year over the same 10-year period. So I think a lot of people, especially in fixed incomes, they're going to come back and say, well, you are cutting my take home, you're cutting my out of pocket. So that really needs to be illustrated much clearer than it is right now.
Sir, thank you for your question. Actually, the capital levy does get an adjustment. It's for net tax capacity. So it could actually go the other direction. Consumer index, essentially the Minnesota Department of Education through the state of Minnesota establishes what that inflationary factor is going to be. So we monitor that. That's the most direct way I can answer that. And your advice around making that more prolific in our presentations and in our documentation is duly noted.
This is a comment and a brief question. So the comment is regarding the first question about security. I just wanted to make sure that we're clear that Now, security can mean a couple different things. Security can mean that feeling of being secure, and then security can also mean securing an asset against a threat. And those are very different things, and they require different tools. And I understand as a district, you're really trying to make sure that your parents feel okay with having their children there, but oftentimes you can invest improperly with either over-treating so that people have that psychological feeling of being secure, even when spending that money isn't actually demonstrably improving the security of the asset, in this case, is our children. But, so that's a common fallacy, and I've worked in information security, and a lot of people kind of fail in that way. So this is more for the parents, I think, than the district. But I think this is the struggle that you're trying to balance between, is how do you communicate to the community that we want you to feel okay with our facilities and with our programs, while taking care of the realities of what would actually improve student welfare. And that might not be the obvious things, and it may not be the flashy things. The question is a bit more personal. I'm an urban resident, and as of a decade ago, I know for a fact in Minnesota, I wasn't legally allowed to vote even for local things. That's not the case in all states, but in Minnesota it was. Is that still the case, or would I be able to vote on something like this?
You are a Lakeville resident?
I've been a Lakeville resident for about 8 years. So.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, that's a good question. Lakeville District, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Live in the Lakeville District.
Yes.
All right, do we have any index slides? Oh, otherwise we do have another live. Randy.
I have to start with the yes or no question first. So just, the capital levy can be spent on technology, but the general fund levy can be spent on virtually anything, correct?
The board did define the use of the operational levy, and so they need to stay true to that because of the documented promise of that. But as a general rule, sure. But since we added it to the question, it's pretty clear how the revenue would have to be used for the operation.
Right, for the operational. But the general fund levy, which is actually the other half of this we're talking about, can be used for a lot of things. So me as a person in the district who heard a lot about security and all the things we want to do, what we have, somebody's telling me no.
No, you're mixing up operational and capital.
I'm not, I understand the two. So the operational levy can be used, which will go to the general fund, correct?
But it has been defined. She just
But it can
answered
be used, but the general fund can be used for anything. So here's the question, well, just
But the
about.
money that they're using.
Let's go with this. Can we use the general fund money to help with security?
Technically, we can use the general fund money for anything that we prioritize as spending. And that, of course, is the budget development process that we go through every year. And with about 80% of our budget, since we are a service organization, going for staffing, that is always our priority, making sure that we're providing the service for students. But yes, the Board of Education has the authority to prioritize the general fund budget and utilize it for these types of things as well.
So then the question comes back to the one I wanted to start with. And I wanted to make sure everybody was clear that that's how it works. So we just saved $600,000 in healthcare benefits. I've confirmed it a couple times, so I feel pretty confident I can say it. The $600,000 that we used, that we saved, we could have used for the security that we said is important, which is 6/10 of what you're asking for right now. And we chose not to do that. We chose to let our teachers, not that I don't like teachers, but we let them not pay for health care for the next year to make that work. That feels like a betrayal to the citizens, because that's what we want. We want security, we want smaller class sizes, but we went out and used this money for something else. So it isn't a priority, I wish it was. So that's the first question that I wanted to verify. I mean, you can respond to that as you'd like, but that's how I read it, that's how I asked the questions on it, so I think that's where we're at. I
would just thank you for your perspective and your comments. All right? I'm going to need my glasses or have somebody else read this. Okay, we have another live gentleman, so thank you.
My question's concerning the art teachers, I guess. I have a son in first grade, and he is doing 1 day a week of STEM, 2 days of gym, a day of media center, and a day of music. If we add art, one of those specialist times will decrease. So where is the money going that was spent for that specialist time when we're adding additional money for the art teacher? In addition, what of the specialist times will we be losing?
What an excellent question. I was really hoping that would get asked this evening. So a lot of adjustments have had to be made over the years because of reductions to the budget. And one of them was utilizing our media specialists in the classroom to cover our core or grade level teachers' prep time to prepare for their rest of the day. And so we offer currently media once a week. We would take media out of that as a special, because right now what we're doing is integrating media more and more as needed to support teaching and learning. We don't want technology and digital skills and citizenship to be a separate siloed class. We want it to be integrated when it makes sense to integrate it as a tool for learning, not as an afterthought. So that's what would be replaced. Instead of going to media once a week, students would have the art experience. So our media specialists would be able to go back to what we had before in our district. So that's like a bonus to this, I believe, because now they're back supporting our media and our digital technology needs. So as teachers are getting training and learning to use these in use technology and software in meaningful ways, they have support built in at the elementary level, because these media specialists have committed to training and learning and their enthusiasm and passion for where we're going as a district. So they, in essence, become media specialists supercharged also into digital learning support coaches for our teachers and for our students, so that we're not wasting time trying to fix how this computer is working. We're really using it for teaching and learning. Okay? Does that answer your question, sir?
I followed up with when would they check out books?
Is there still going to be a library, like for books?
Yeah, we have libraries in all of our elementaries. We're not dismantling our libraries. Library books, some get checked out electronically right now by students, by assistants, by the media specialists. Teachers sometimes can go in there and do it on their own with the class. I'm not saying that that person wouldn't be in the media center. In fact, they'd be more freed up to be more available in the media center. Right now, many of them are spending half or more than half of their time in the classrooms out of the media center.
So when would the students have time to be in the library?
It's part of their schedule,
Yeah.
like their teachers would schedule the time. They used to do that, but when we made changes before, we had to add media in because we took out a bi-ed or whatever.
Okay, so then we're back to now they're losing classroom time.
No, that was how it used to be though. That
Okay,
was,
I know, but I'm talking
Okay.
about now. The teachers have scheduled their day around a certain amount of time for math, a certain amount of time for reading, a certain amount of time for their stuff. Now we have to subtract whatever was being used in the classroom so they can do additional time for
You're
art.
swapping media back for art. It used to be art, then it became media, now it's going
they
back
were
to being
doing
art.
art in their classes.
So now we're losing media.
No.
They
Yes,
were
their
doing
time is a
media.
finite,
Media was a fill-in. It's not what you're envisioning as them going to the
but they
library.
wouldn't have they don't spend the day with media and then have additional time in the day with media. They
Yeah,
have time in the day with media. and they have
You
time
are
with-
right, sir, that all of our media, including the 5 or 10 minutes to check out books or All of our elementaries also have digital libraries. In fact, you can be in your classroom on a device searching for the book that you want, check it out, and then simply go pick it up, which would take about 30 seconds, or have somebody deliver them to the classroom. So it would be just much more integrated into when you need those. So if you're utilizing your books for the guided or free reading time, independent reading time that's built into balanced literacy, that's how it would be built in. The media would be built in to the needs of that as well. Jackie?
What I seem to be hearing is that we're losing the touch and feel of the
Yeah,
book
there's a
time.
tactile. I mean, you're dealing with a
That's
kindergarten or a
what
first
I'm hearing.
grader. I can put my kid never going to find a book that interests him unless he's in the room
Right.
and he looks through it.
I understand. Yep, and teachers certainly would make that a priority as they do now. That's not going to change.
But it would change because we've lost that. You're taking an hour of a day that was spent with that and you're substituting it for something else that they would have been doing in the classroom. It does
Okay,
change.
I'm going to agree with you because it isn't going to be exactly how it was. You're right. We are prioritizing what our stakeholders said was most important, and that is art. That doesn't mean we're going to get rid of those other activities, but you are right. They would happen in a different way at a different time. Okay? All right, looks like I'm going to be reading some questions then. I'm new to the district.
I have something that might help you.
Okay.
Media at our elementary school is actually a class that the kids go to learn how to use different technologies. Like last year, my 4th grader created an iMovie and learned how to give presentations and sync up video with his voice and everything else. Their library time where they went and checked out books was separate from media. So that might clear that up for you. They're not going to, by taking away the media, I'm still curious if they're going to have those opportunities, but they're not going to lose library
But they'll
time.
still lose that opportunity.
They're
if
going to
they-
lose that opportunity to create iMovies then.
No, they won't. That would be integrated into their learning.
And
So
then they would
that's-
lose something else during the day. There's only so much
But that
time in
is
the
art.
day, and you now
But
decided
art
there's an
has
hour
to
in
be-
art.
Steve has art.
Okay, let me just clear up one little misconception about digital tools and resources. We're not teaching technology for technology's sake. We're not teaching your child to create.
For what purpose?
Okay, hold on, just hear me out, okay? We're not teaching your children to make iMovies so that they can go out in the world and say, I can make an iMovie. We're not teaching your children to make keynotes or PowerPoint presentations so that they know how to technically make a PowerPoint. We are having them use those vehicles to express themselves creatively in the digital age about meaningful content. So having these lessons in media separate from the learning that needs to happen at a grade level is really quite absurd if you think about it. Now, most of our experiences, our teachers are awesome, so they talk to the grade level teachers, what is the content you're working on, and then they try to work together so that isn't separate and it's not just about technology. So here, all of those wonderful lessons you just talked about would be taught by grade level teachers along with the content of whatever it is they're learning, the essential learning of the grade level. Technology for us is a tool for learning. We do not want it to be a tool to just learn about technology. Sir, you want to come on up because it gets very difficult as...
I'll speak loudly.
Okay.
A concrete example of that, this wasn't in Lakeville, this was my own middle school experience, but we did science labs where one member of the team documented the lab and in the form of a website. And so the learning of creating websites in that example was actually functionally a part of the scientific process of how do I make my results parsable to other people and comparable. And teachers will use their ingenuity in doing other sorts of integrations like that.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm going to have Michael come up and read the safety question and respond. I'll read it, you can respond. How about that? Okay. All right, Michael, are we buying too early? At what point is this a #1 priority? I have walked through Lakeview, also McGuire, and have never been stopped. I have watched all school shootings. Why is this not number one when there was just another shooting last week? This is not stopping shooters.
What the Board of Education has done is purchased and we have installed access control systems and visitor management systems to deal with that. You may be aware of some of because we're talking about an active shooter scenario, that seems to be the key threat that's most concerning, at least it is in this example. The Board of Education did approve that. We have installed those systems. We are in the process of activating those. By the end of October, we'll have all our schools with those activated, with the exception of the high schools, because they have essentially checkpoints and controlled access at the entryways to their facilities. That said, I think the other part of the question was, when is it too early to buy new technology? It's never too early. As far as the determination of priorities with respect to countering an active shooter threat, the board has done that, and they will continue to support that, is my belief and my understanding based on the work that we've done so far. Again, I don't look at the problem as a purely technology solution. It's combined effects. There are training aspects to this. There are procedural aspects to this. I talked about internal security measures. There are ways to compartmentalize facilities and technology that can be leveraged to do that and expanded. And also, I think most important is being well integrated with our first responders. Let's start with the police department. Lakeville Area Public Schools has, at least since I've walked in the doors, made a very special, direct, and intense effort to be good partners with our Lakeville Police Department, because they will be first on the scene for the description that you described. Having been a military professional for 20 years of my life and been in those situations for real, I can tell you that concept of delaying and deterring is a technology and training solution that is properly integrated, will have huge impact and huge effect. I can tell you for sure that the police department, at least in this city, has radically changed their tactics for dealing with those kinds of scenarios. And we have also taken some equipment measures that I'm not at liberty to discuss because we don't want to compromise that capability. That said, we are doing all we can do. But again, garrisoning our facilities is what would be required in order to give you 100% comfort for every possible contingency. And even then, you got to be right 100% of the time, and the bad guy only has to be right once. So it's a very difficult problem to solve if the answer is purely financial. There's more things that have to be done, and it's integration and combined effects that we're seeking. So I think we're doing a good job at that. Can we do better? Yes, and we are working to do better. And I think you should feel, and the message I would like you to take forward is, as you see these visitor management systems and access control systems come online, and you talk to the staffs in the building about the training and different types of training that we're doing, and talk to a police officer in the Lakeville Police Department, I think you'll have a better reassurance about the capabilities within the school district. But we're going to keep moving forward, and we're going to go as fast-paced as we can go.